Lieutenant Ethan Cole had faced danger many times before, but nothing could have prepared him for Jarian. The planet's skies burned with green storms that crackled with strange energy. His ship shuddered as he fought against the violent winds, following the faint distress signal of a captured princess. Ethan had no idea what she looked like, only that someone needed help. And humans were not supposed to be heroes in alien worlds. Yet, something inside him refused to turn away. Through the storm, the outline of a hovering prison ship emerged, jagged and metallic, swinging dangerously in the wind. Inside he glimpsed her, a figure suspended above a yawning abyss, her silvery blue robes whipping around her, her glowing eyes wide with fear. Ethan's heart clenched. He did not pause to think. He maneuvered his ship closer, calculating the jump. The air outside the pod shimmered with alien energy, but his hand was steady, his mind focused. He fired the plasma grapples with precision and aimed for the ship's edge. Every second stretched into eternity as he leapt across the void, muscles straining, lungs burning. A gust of wind threatened to throw him off, and he almost missed. But he caught the edge of the prison's frame and pulled himself up, feeling the electricity hum through the metal. The princess's eyes met his. Fear, shock, and something else, hope, flashed across her face. She reached for him instinctively, and he grabbed her, holding her close as the storm roared around them. "Hold on!" he shouted, though the wind swallowed his words. He secured her with his grapples, trying not to look down at the endless chasm below. The princess's small hands clutched his arm. Her skin was warm, and for a moment, she pressed her forehead against his shoulder. Ethan could feel her racing heartbeat. Something powerful and unfamiliar stirred inside him: responsibility, fear, and a strange kind of awe. The prison ship shuddered violently, sparks flying from its engines. Ethan realized it would not hold for long. He needed an escape fast. He activated the pod's engines, dragging the princess with him as he leapt from the prison ship just before it exploded. The shockwave hurled him forward, the heat singing his suit. But he held on, refusing to let her slip away. The universe seemed to blur around them, streaks of light and sound merging into one chaotic pulse. When they finally landed, rolling across the rocky ground, Ethan gasped for breath. He helped the princess to her feet, brushing off the dirt and ash that clung to her robes. She looked at him, eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. In that silence, a connection formed, something beyond words, beyond species. Ethan realized that in saving her, he had not just rescued a life. He had stepped into something much larger, something that would change both of them forever. For the first time, the weight of the situation hit him. This was not just a rescue mission. He was on an alien world, among beings he did not understand. And he had the princess's life in his hands. But he did not falter. He would not fail. The adrenaline coursing through his veins became a strange comfort. He looked at her and saw determination mirrored in her luminous eyes. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Above them, the storm began to fade, leaving the twin moons of Jarian glimmering through the dissipating clouds. The princess finally spoke, her voice soft but trembling. You saved me." Ethan nodded, though he knew words could not capture the chaos they had survived. He only said, "I couldn't leave you." And in that moment, as the wind whispered through the jagged rocks around them, something shifted. A chain of events had begun, one that neither human nor alien could have foreseen. Their journey was only starting, and the universe had already taken notice. Ethan understood, with a mixture of fear and awe, that his life and the life of this strange, radiant princess would never be the same again. The palace gates of Jarian loomed above Ethan like giants made of shining crystal and metal. He had never seen architecture so strange, so alive. The walls seemed to pulse with energy, reflecting the glow of the twin moons in fractured patterns. And yet, despite the beauty, a tense silence hung in the air. Ethan carried Princess Lyra carefully, her body trembling from exhaustion. She was smaller than she looked in the Hollywood reports, delicate yet strangely strong. Her luminous skin catching the moonlight. They had only taken a few steps inside when the great doors opened, revealing the king. His presence was overwhelming. Towering, armored in flowing robes embedded with gemstones that pulsed with a faint light, he radiated authority. His gaze landed on Ethan, sharp and unyielding. "Human," the king said, his voice deep and resonant, shaking the very floor beneath them. "You have saved my daughter. For that, you are to honor the laws of Jarian. You shall marry Princess Lyra." Ethan froze. The words hit him like a thunderbolt. Marriage? Him? With an alien princess? His mind raced, searching for a way to protest. I don't understand, he said. On Earth, you can't just, you will obey, the king interrupted, his gaze cutting through him. The law is not a suggestion. Lyra's hand pressed against his arm. Her touch was soft, almost hesitant, but it grounded him. She looked at him with an expression that was impossible to read, a mix of fear, expectation, and something else he could not name. She did not speak. She did not flinch. And that terrified him more than the king's command. The human tried to reason, to explain human customs, but the words felt hollow in the alien court. He was just one man, standing before a ruler whose laws shaped the lives of millions. The courtiers around them murmured, their strange voices rising and falling in waves that made him dizzy. Ethan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of an impossible choice pressing down on him. I saved her, he whispered, mostly to himself. I saved her. And now this? Lyra leaned closer, brushing her hand over his wrist. It is our law, she said softly, her voice carrying a musical cadence he could barely understand. We have no choice. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but there was a quiet strength there. It was a strength he had seen before, in her fight for survival. The king's expression softened slightly, though his voice remained commanding. Courage alone is not enough. You must honor your act with commitment. Protect her, respect her, and you will earn the right to stand beside her as husband. Ethan felt a strange mixture of fear and awe. He had come to Geryon to do what was right, not to become part of a law that felt alien and overwhelming. Yet, standing there, looking into Lyra's luminous eyes, he realized that defiance might cost her life, and he could not bear that thought. His chest tightened, a storm of responsibility and emotion twisting within him. Lyra's gaze held him, steady and luminous. I trust you, she whispered. The words were soft, but their weight carried more than any speech could. It was a trust born in the midst of danger, a silent bond formed in fire and chaos. Ethan nodded slowly, realizing that their lives were now intertwined in ways he could not yet understand. The king gestured toward the palace halls. You will prepare for the union. There is much to learn, our laws, our customs, our ways. Do not fail her, human. As they walked inside, Ethan kept a steady pace, though his mind was a whirlwind. He had saved the princess, yes. But now, he was bound to her by law, by honor, and perhaps by a destiny he had never imagined. Lyra walked beside him, close but silent, her presence a calm anchor in the storm of his thoughts. For the first time, Ethan realized that heroism was not just about bravery in battle, it was about choices, responsibility, and facing the impossible with courage. And as the palace doors closed behind them, he understood that nothing in his life on Earth had prepared him for this challenge. This was a new world with new rules, and he had no choice but to rise to meet them. The twin moons outside glimmered softly, their light falling across the courtyard. And in that soft alien glow, Ethan felt the first stirring of a strange hope. Perhaps, in this impossible situation, they could find a way to survive and even to live. The palace of Geryon was a maze of glittering halls and endless corridors, alive with shimmering lights that danced along the walls. Ethan had never felt so small in his life. Every step he took was watched, measured, and judged by beings whose culture he barely understood. Courtiers whispered behind his back, their words sharp and alien, making him feel like an outsider in a world that should have welcomed him as a hero. Yet he pressed on, because he could not fail Lyra, not after everything he had risked to save her. Lyra moved beside him, her steps graceful yet tense. She had returned to her usual composure, the luminous glow of her skin dimming slightly as if hiding the fear she had worn like armor. Ethan noticed the way she avoided the whispers, the way she kept her eyes on him in fleeting glances. At first, he thought it was curiosity, but soon he realized it was more than that. It was a tentative trust. She was testing him, seeing if he could survive this world, if he could endure the scrutiny and expectations placed upon him by her people. The first days were exhausting. Ethan struggled to remember the palace customs, the strange gestures and words, the formalities that seemed impossible to master. One wrong move could offend the wrong noble, and he could sense the tension rising around him. Lyra watched silently at first, occasionally correcting him with a soft word or a gentle touch. No, not like that, she whispered once, as he bowed awkwardly before a council of nobles. Breathe. Slow. Human. Ethan laughed softly despite the embarrassment. Her voice was like a melody in the alien air, steady and comforting. Even when the world around them felt like it might collapse. At night, the palace became quieter, and in those rare moments, Ethan and Lyra found small spaces where they could speak freely. In the garden, under alien trees that glowed faintly with phosphorescent leaves, they shared stories. Ethan told her about Earth, the oceans that stretched endlessly, the mountains that scraped the sky, the simple warmth of sunlight. Lyra listened, fascinated, asking questions that revealed her curiosity and her longing for a world she had never seen. And she told him of Jarian, of her people's history, of the burden she carried as princess. In the glow of the moons, their laughter and whispers mingled, creating a bond neither of them fully understood yet. But palace life was not just about whispered moments of connection. Threats lurked everywhere. Ethan noticed the subtle glances, the way some nobles would press closer when the king was not watching, their eyes filled with suspicion and disdain. He understood that not all accepted him, that his presence as a human was an intrusion in their perfect, ordered world. Lyra, too, seemed to sense the tension. Sometimes when the whispers grew too loud, she would grab his arm and pull him close, her eyes searching his face for reassurance. Ethan, despite his exhaustion, felt a strange pride. He had come to save her, yes, but now he was determined to protect her from this. To the subtle dangers of a world that did not yet trust him. One evening, after a long day of lessons in court etiquette, Lyra stopped beside a fountain of glowing water. Her reflection shimmering alongside Ethan's, she laughed softly at one of his awkward attempts to bow gracefully. And he laughed with her, the sound echoing through the marble halls. In that moment, the tension eased just a little, and Ethan realized something important. Heroism was not just about facing monsters or explosions. It was also about building trust, earning respect, and showing care in ways that words alone could not express. As they walked back to the palace chambers, side by side, Ethan felt the first warmth of hope. Perhaps this world, so alien and daunting, could become a place he belonged. Perhaps despite the laws, the customs, and the whispered suspicions, he and Lyra could find something more than duty, a connection that might survive even the impossible challenges ahead. Ethan thought the palace was the safest place he could be. But he quickly learned that danger came in forms far more subtle than stormy skies or deadly landscapes. Whispers in the corridors, suspicious glances, and the sudden disappearance of minor nobles all pointed to a truth that chilled him. Not everyone welcomed him. Some within the royal court saw him as an outsider, a human intruder unworthy of standing beside their princess. And now, that tension was about to explode. It happened on a night when the twin moons cast silver light across the courtyard. Ethan had been walking with Lyra through the gardens, teaching her a simple human game with pebbles. Her laughter floated on the cool air, a sound he cherished more than he could admit. But then, shadows moved along the marble walkways, silent and deliberate. Ethan froze. His instinct screamed that something was wrong. Lyra sensed it too, her hand pressing against his. Her body tense. Without warning, a dark figure leapt from the shadows. A blade glinting in the moonlight, aimed directly at Lyra. Ethan's reaction was instantaneous. He threw himself between the attacker and the princess, using his body as a shield. The blade clanged against the edge of his armor, sparks flying. Heart pounding, he rolled to the side and grabbed a nearby staff, swinging it with every ounce of human strength he had. The intruder was fast, but Ethan had something unexpected on his side: unpredictability. Humans could improvise, adapt, and take risks that others wouldn't. He ducked, blocked, and countered with a combination of brute strength and instinct. The princess had backed away, fear and concern mingling in her eyes, but she did not scream. Ethan's focus was absolute. Failure was not an option. He had promised to protect her, and he intended to keep that promise, no matter the cost. Finally, with a swift maneuver, he disarmed the attacker, sending the weapon clattering across the courtyard. The figure hissed in anger and retreated into the shadows, disappearing as suddenly as it had come. Ethan's chest heaved with exhaustion, but he turned immediately to Lyra. Her eyes were wide, shimmering with tears and relief. She stepped forward, placing both hands on his shoulders. "You," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You saved me." Again, Ethan gave a small, exhausted smile. "I told you. I won't let anyone hurt you." The aftermath was tense. The palace guards arrived moments later, their expressions a mixture of shock and admiration. They had heard stories of human courage, but seeing it in action, even against an alien-trained attacker, was something else entirely. The king, summoned to the courtyard by the commotion, arrived with measured steps, his usual calm replaced by a rare, sharp intensity. He looked at Ethan, observing the sweat, the scrapes, and the unwavering determination etched across the human's face. "Your courage is undeniable," the king said, his deep voice carrying across the courtyard. "You have protected my daughter with your life. This human has proven himself worthy." Lyra's hand found Ethan's again, this time holding it tightly, her trust no longer quiet or hesitant, but open and undeniable. For the first time, Ethan felt a strange warmth in the cold, alien air. It was more than relief. It was recognition, respect, and a connection that needed no words. That night, as they walked through the palace gardens, the danger now behind them, Ethan felt a shift in how he viewed his place here. He had started as a rescuer, an outsider swept into a world of rules he didn't understand. But now he was becoming something more, a protector, a partner, and someone the princess could depend on not just for her life, but for her heart. Lyra looked up at him under the alien moons. "Humans are different," she said softly, almost to herself. "Stronger, in ways we cannot predict." Ethan smiled faintly, brushing a lock of her glowing hair from her face. "Maybe it's not just strength," he replied. "Maybe it's courage, and refusing to give up, no matter how impossible things seem." The wind whispered through the alien trees, carrying a promise that they had survived the first true test together. And though Ethan knew that more challenges awaited them, he also understood something vital. Heroism was not measured only in saving lives from danger, but in standing firm when the world itself seemed set against you, and protecting the people you care for, whatever the cost. The days in the palace passed with a strange rhythm, a mixture of lessons, etiquette, and quiet moments stolen away from prying eyes. Ethan had begun to understand the palace, its rules, and its expectations, but the true challenge was navigating the complex heart of Princess Lyra. She was no longer just the rescued princess. She was a being with thoughts, fears, and a strength that drew him in. Their bond, forged in moments of danger, now began to grow in subtle, unexpected ways. Every morning, Ethan would wake to the soft glow of the twin moons spilling through the tall crystal windows. Lyra would be there, sometimes reading scrolls of Jarian law, sometimes merely watching him. Their mornings became a quiet ritual of words and gestures. She would correct his pronunciation, tease him gently for forgetting customs, and sometimes, just sometimes, she would reach for his hand as if seeking reassurance. Ethan realized that these small touches were more meaningful than any ceremony, more powerful than the rules that bound them together. One afternoon, they walked in the palace gardens, the alien trees glowing faintly as they moved. Ethan had begun to teach Lyra about Earth, the simple things he loved, running through rain, feeling sand beneath his feet, or lying under a sky full of stars. Lyra listened with fascination, her luminous eyes reflecting wonder he had never seen in anyone else. She told him stories of her world too, the ancient battles, the politics, and the hidden gardens where only royalty could go. Each tale brought them closer, weaving understanding and trust between human and princes. But trust, he learned, was fragile. Not all in the palace approved of him. Some nobles continued to whisper, some glared, some plotted. Ethan felt their judgment like a constant weight, but Lyra never let him falter. When one courtier tried to belittle him during a formal meeting, she stepped forward, her voice clear and commanding, standing beside Ethan as if he were part of her own being. That small act of solidarity made him realize the depth of her trust. She had begun to rely on him not just for protection, but for companionship. Evenings were the most revealing. Often, they would walk under the alien moons, sharing quiet thoughts that were too dangerous to voice in the halls. Lyra would confide in him about her fears, the responsibilities she could not escape, the loneliness of being a princess, and the burden of her people's expectations. Ethan listened without judgment, offering comfort with words, gestures, and sometimes just silence. And slowly, she began to smile more freely, laugh more often, and allow herself to lean on him in ways she never had with anyone else. One night, after an especially long day of palace duties, Lyra brought Ethan to the highest balcony of the palace. Below, the city of Jarian sparkled with energy, a web of light and life. "Humans," she said softly, almost to herself, "you are different. You see things we cannot. You do not bend to fear the way we do." Ethan smiled faintly, taking her hand in his. "Maybe it's not just courage," he said. "Maybe it's hope, and refusing to give up, no matter what stands in the way." For a moment, they stood in silence, hands intertwined, hearts beating in quiet sync. Ethan realized that saving Lyra had been only the beginning. This bond, this fragile growing connection, was far more important. It was trust, respect, and maybe even the beginnings of something he had never allowed himself to feel. Love. The palace no longer felt like a prison. It was a place of learning, of growth, and of unexpected companionship. Ethan and Lyra had survived threats, conspiracies, and the weight of their world's expectations. And now, in the quiet glow of alien moons, they had begun to build something lasting, something neither human nor alien had expected. But both desperately needed. Ethan looked at Lyra, her glowing eyes reflecting the stars above. "We've come this far together," he said quietly. Lyra's lips curved into a soft, sincere smile. "Yes," she replied. "And we will face whatever comes next. Together." The morning air in the palace was crisp, carrying a faint scent of alien blossoms. Today was not just another day of lessons or cautious walks through the palace gardens. Today was the trial, a test that would determine if Ethan, a human stranger, was worthy of standing beside Princess Lyra as her mate. The king had explained it simply. Courage, intelligence, and endurance would be measured in ways humans could scarcely imagine. But Ethan had no choice. He had to prove himself, not just for Lyra, but for the trust and bond they had built. The trial began in the Hall of Challenges, a vast chamber where walls shifted and shimmered with energy, reflecting impossible pathways. Ethan's first task was to navigate a maze of moving platforms suspended over a chasm of glowing energy. One wrong step could mean a fall he would not survive. He concentrated, remembering the human lessons of balance, observation, and patience. Step by step, he moved forward, adjusting instinctively to the changing surfaces. Lyra watched from the edge, her heart pounding as she silently cheered him on. Next came the test of knowledge. Ancient Jarian puzzles, riddles designed to challenge intellect and perception, awaited him. Symbols glowed on floating panels, shifting and merging in patterns no human language could describe. Ethan studied each carefully, drawing on logic and creativity. He remembered Lyra's teachings and applied them, connecting patterns and sequences that initially seemed random. The panels lit up one by one, signaling his progress. When the last puzzle clicked into place, a quiet gasp escaped Lyra's lips. She had never seen a human adapt so quickly, yet here he was, proving that courage could be matched by intelligence. The final trial was the most daunting. A creature, immense and formidable, emerged from a shimmering portal. Its eyes glowed red, and its roar echoed across the chamber. Ethan had never faced anything like it, yet he did not hesitate. Humans were not naturally the strongest beings in the universe, but they could think, adapt, and endure. Using his environment, he created distractions, dodged powerful strikes, and guided the creature toward a containment field. Every move required focus and courage beyond what most humans had faced. Sweat poured down his face, but he refused to falter. He would protect Lyra, no matter the cost. Finally, the creature was subdued, the energy dissipated, and the trials concluded. Ethan collapsed to his knees, chest heaving, but a sense of triumph washed over him. He had survived the impossible. Lyra rushed forward, throwing her arms around him, her glowing skin warm against his own. "You did it," she whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. "You passed every test. And more." The king appeared then, his presence both commanding and approving. He had observed every step, every decision, every ounce of courage and cleverness Ethan had displayed. "Human," he said, his voice echoing in the hall, "you have shown what your kind can achieve when guided by courage, loyalty, and determination. You are worthy." Ethan looked at Lyra, seeing the admiration, trust, and something deeper in her eyes. It was more than relief, it was recognition. She had seen him fight, think, and endure. And in doing so, he had proven not just his ability to survive, but his heart, his honor, and his willingness to protect what he loved. Lyra's hand slipped into his, fingers entwining. "You have earned this," she said softly. "Not because of the trial, but because of who you are, and what you chose to do for me." Ethan felt a warmth that went far beyond the glow of the alien chamber. Heroism was not measured only in strength or skill, it was shown in choices, in courage, in the willingness to face fear and danger for others. And in that moment, he understood something profound. He belonged here, not by law alone, but because he had proven himself worthy of trust, respect, and love. As they left the Hall of Challenges together, Ethan held his head high, a quiet pride glowing within him. The palace no longer seemed intimidating, nor the whispers threatening. He had passed the trial of courage, intellect, and endurance. But more importantly, he had passed the unspoken trial of the heart. And now, as he walked beside Lyra under the twin moons, He knew that whatever challenges awaited them, they would face them together. The day of the ceremony arrived, and the palace was alive with colors and lights that seemed to shimmer with their own heartbeat. The air buzzed with energy, alien melodies floating through the halls, and the courtiers lined the grand corridor in anticipation. Ethan stood beside Princess Lyra, his heart pounding, his palms sweating. He was no longer just a human in a foreign world, he was her protector, her companion, and now, by law and by choice, her mate. Lyra looked radiant, her glowing robes cascading like liquid silver, her hair catching the light of the twin moons. Her eyes met Ethan's, steady and unwavering, filled with warmth and trust. In that moment, the weight of fear and uncertainty melted away. They had survived threats, conspiracies, and trials, and now they were here, ready to face the world together. The king approached, his presence commanding yet softened by pride. "Today we honor not only the laws of Geryon," he announced, "but the courage, loyalty, and bond that has been forged between human and princess. Let this union mark a new chapter for both worlds." Ethan straightened, feeling the gravity of the moment. The words were formal, yet the meaning was clear. This was more than law, it was recognition of what he and Lyra had built together. The ceremony began. Ethan and Lyra exchanged vows, their voices simple yet profound, bridging two worlds. He promised to protect her, to honor her, to stand beside her no matter the challenges. She promised to trust him, to walk with him, to share the burdens and joys of life together. Each word carried weight, echoing through the palace halls and into the hearts of everyone present. When they placed their hands together, a surge of energy pulsed through the room. The courtiers gasped, a subtle shimmer surrounding them as the union was blessed by the laws and magic of Geryon. Ethan felt the warmth of that energy, but more than that, he felt the warmth of Lyra's trust and the bond that had grown stronger with every trial. Every danger and every quiet moment they had shared. After the formalities, they stepped onto the balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The twin moons bathed the world in silver light, and for a moment, Ethan simply breathed, taking in the beauty of the planet and the extraordinary journey that had brought him here. Lyra stood beside him, her hands slipping into his fingers intertwined. "We survived together," she whispered, her voice carrying across the night air. "Now we live together." Ethan nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "Yes, together," he replied, the word feeling heavier yet lighter than anything he had ever said before. In her presence he felt complete, not because of the laws that bound them, but because of the bond they had earned, nurtured, and chosen. The night stretched around them, alive with lights, music, and quiet laughter. For the first time, Ethan understood what heroism truly meant. It was not only in daring feats, battles, or impossible rescues. It was in trust, in loyalty, in courage that extended beyond the battlefield and into the hearts of those you care for. He had faced storms, enemies, and alien trials. But standing here, beside Lyra, he realized that the greatest victories were the bonds forged in trust and love. As the celebrations continued, Ethan and Lyra moved quietly through the palace gardens, away from the crowds. He watched her smile under the alien moons, saw the light in her eyes, and felt a peace he had never known. This was more than survival. It was a new beginning, a merging of worlds, hearts, and destinies. In the stillness of the night, surrounded by glowing trees and the gentle hum of the palace, Ethan knew one thing for certain: he was home. Not just on Geryon, but with Lyra, in a bond that no law, threat, or trial could break. And as they stood hand in hand, looking toward the horizon, the future shimmered before them, bright, uncertain, and theirs to shape together. And for the first time, Lieutenant Ethan Cole allowed himself to hope fully, to trust completely, and to embrace the extraordinary life he had never imagined, but now could call his own.